All right, welcome back to ABA exam review and our RBT exam practice question series, where we're going through the next set of questions together and breaking them down. If you're new to the channel, welcome. If you're returning, welcome back. Please like and subscribe. Check out btexamreview.com for all of our study materials, including our combo pack. As always, when you pass, let us know so we can include you in the Sunday shout out. Work hard, study hard. Let's get going. Before a skill acquisition plan can be written and before a behavior plan can be designed, what is the first thing that must be done assuming the assessment is finished? Now, kind of a convoluted question, but not a long question, and one that we can break down and figure out. Now, what is the question really asking? Well, it's asking about the first thing that must be done after an assessment before a skill acquisition plan or behavior plan can be designed. So we're talking about the very first step in a skill acquisition plan or a behavior plan. And when we talk about the first steps and acquisition plans and behavior plans, you can usually safely presume that the assessment is done. Here, the question specifies for you that the assessment is finished, making it even more clear. So, what is the first thing we want to do when designing a skill acquisition plan and a behavior plan? And these two things are pretty different, right? Because with a skill acquisition plan, we're trying to typically increase a skill. With the behavior plan, we're trying to typically decrease something. Either way, the first thing is the same. So, A, identifying a target behavior. Yes, a lot of people, they think we need to first pick a goal or first pick a measurement system. You don't want to pick any of those things, and you can't until you have a target behavior. Your target behavior is going to dictate your measurement style, your goals, your analyses. So until you have a target behavior, you can't design a skill acquisition plan and you can't design a behavior plan. So B, identifying a goal. Well, if we don't have a target behavior, how can we set a goal? C, evaluating the data and making adjustments. We don't have any data yet. We're at the very beginning of our plan. And then D, selecting a measurement system. Again, until I know what my behavior is, because crying is going to be measured much differently than, say, aggression. So until I know my target behavior, I don't have any goals, I don't have a measurement system, and I certainly have no data. So the first thing that must be done, assuming the assessment is finished, in a skill acquisition plan or behavior plan is A, identifying a target behavior. You attend a party on the rooftop of a Chicago building. It is near the end of the day, so the sun is starting to set. The sun hits your table, causing your group to move to a different table for the time being. Assuming you would move again in the future, moving to a different table functions as what? So the question is asking about you moving to a different table, you and your group, whoever you're with. And the key here is assuming you would move again in the future. And what does that tell us? It tells us the behavior's changed in the future. And when we know the behavior changes in the future, then we can determine if something is reinforcing or punishing. Well, since the behavior increased, right, or maintained, because we're going to do it again in the future, we can assume moving is at least reinforcement. So now we have to determine, is it negative reinforcement, positive reinforcement, and what about escape? Well, we know, right? It's near the end of the day. So that wrong spelling of sun, but the sun is starting to set. The sun hits your table. So you move to a different table. What is the consequence of moving to a different table? You've escaped the sun. And so you've removed or escaped the sun, making that negative or positive. Well, negative because something was removed. And since your behavior increased in the future, it was reinforcement. So moving to the different table functions as A, negative reinforcement. What about B, escape? Well, remember, escape is negative reinforcement. Negative reinforcement typically occurs due to avoidance or escape of an aversive, right? And that's what we've done. We've escaped the sun. It isn't positive reinforcement because we've taken something away and not added something. So the answer is going to be both A and B, negative reinforcement and escape. As a behavior technician, when should you write a session note? All right, this is at the very beginning of our task list. We talk about data collection, preparing for data collection, session notes, during session, kind of the administrative work of a behavior technician. And especially in this day and age, it's very important that we are writing session notes, especially for insurance purposes. So as a behavior technician, when do you write a session note? A, after any major incident or behavior change observed at session. Okay, sure, right? Obviously, that's when you should definitely make a note. There's a major incident, or you see a behavior change. But is this specific enough? Is this all the times you're going to write a session note? B, at the end of each week, you should write a summary note. Unless you're required to, that's typically not how it's done because we want a more thorough and consistent session note. C, after a supervision session. Sure, you should absolutely write a note after a supervision session. D, after every session. Yes, this is the best answer because it's the most precise, right? It's the most specific. Okay, it's the strongest. Yes, you should write a session note after a major incident or behavior change. Yes, you should write a session note after a supervision session, but you really should be writing session notes after every single session. This is why we always read all of our answer choices. We can never stop just at A because A looks good and move on. There's always a chance there's a better choice further down. Never, ever stop at A or B or C without reading all of your choices. So as a behavior technician, when should you write a session note? D, after every session. A mom is tired of her kids crying and screaming whenever they want to go to the park. Now, even if the kids are crying and screaming, she will only take them to the park if they say, "Can we please go to the park?" What type of intervention is this? So clearly a differential reinforcement procedure question. Differential reinforcement, we are reinforcing certain behaviors and putting another behavior on extinction. And when we are discriminating between the different types of differential reinforcement, we're asking ourselves a couple questions. The first question you want to ask yourself, am I teaching a replacement behavior? Because if I'm teaching a replacement behavior, it cannot be a DRO procedure. DROs are not meant to teach replacements, okay? DRIs and DRAs teach replacements. So in this question, are we teaching a replacement? Well, we know the kids are crying and screaming. That's our target. What are we teaching instead? Saying, can we please go to the park? So we are teaching a replacement. DRO is not an option because remember, with the DRO, we reinforce when the target behavior isn't occurring. In a DRI and a DRA, you're reinforcing for the new replacement behavior. So now the question becomes, is can we please go to the park incompatible or alternative to crying and screaming? Well, you have to ask yourself, is the topography different? And can these two occur at the same time? Can you cry, scream, and say, can we please go to the park? Absolutely. Okay. And this is a lot of times where shaping comes in. People want to jump the gun and say, well, they're still crying and screaming. We can't reinforce for saying, can we please go to the park? Well, you've got to understand this is the first step in teaching a better behavior. Because even though they're crying and screaming, at least they're now asking, right? And then we can shape it up. We can get closer and closer to removing the crying and screaming and only having, can we please go to the park? So since this is an alternative and it isn't incompatible, then what type of intervention is this? Well, it's going to be a differential reinforcement of alternative behaviors. A lot of our questions, reinforcement questions, differential reinforcement questions, prompting questions, chaining questions, we go through these kind of decision trees, right? And if you start viewing it like that, where you're asking yourself questions to get to the answer, you're going to find it a lot smoother and a lot easier. And the more you do, the better you're going to get at it. DRD is diminishing, not something you need to know as an RBT. Rochelle, RBT, always arrives at her client's house in a good mood and with a smile. She makes sure to greet the family and to give the client a couple of minutes to transition to session before playing with the client for 10 to 15 minutes. Only then does Rochelle start to introduce more difficult work-related tasks. Rochelle is likely using what? Okay, what is Rochelle doing? Well, to me, it looks a lot like rapport building. She gets to her client's house, she's in a good mood, she's smiling, she's happy to be there, greets the family, lets the client settle in, plays with the client. All these things are doing what? Well, she's trying to establish herself as a reinforcer, for one, right? For future behavior, but she's also getting stimulus control and instructional control over the client's behavior. So we need the client's behavior to perform a certain way in the presence of the RBT. Building a rapport is a good way to do that. Now, is she doing this prior to asking questions and working? She is. So what kind of intervention is that? Well, A, antecedent intervention, right? Because these are all antecedent interventions. They're preventative, trying to prevent behavior from occurring. Remember, a consequence intervention is reactive. Consequence interventions react to behavior occurring. So if she's starting to do these things only after behavior occurs, that's a consequence intervention. She's not doing that. She's getting ahead of it. She's using an antecedent intervention. She's doing all these things as preventative measures. It's not a low P, high P sequence because we are not giving low or what that's actually a high P, low P, right? But we're not giving a lot of high probability requests in a row. So C is just wrong. And it's not pre-MAC principle because she's not using the opportunity to engage in an activity as reinforcement. She's simply using antecedent interventions, preventative strategies in an attempt to prevent and control behavior from happening. First-time parents are bringing their infant child on an airplane for the first time. Mom has a portable mattress that she sets on her lap and puts the baby on. The baby goes to sleep, and anytime the mom notices the baby starting to move, she rocks the mattress, which soothes the baby back to sleep. What response is caused by the baby moving? Behavior questions, when they try to get you to identify SDs and prompts and responses and consequences, you've really got to be careful and identify what exactly they're looking at, the behavior of the person, and kind of the antecedents and consequences around it. So the response we're looking at is the response caused by the baby moving. So the SD is what? Well, the baby moving, because the baby moving evokes the response. So let's find baby moving, right? So mom portable mattress, puts baby on, baby goes to sleep. Anytime the baby starts to move, there's our SD. What does she do? She rocks the mattress. As a consequence, what happens? Soothes baby back to sleep. So what response is caused by the SD of baby moving? A, laying out the mattress. Well, she lays out the mattress way before the baby starts to move. B, rocking the mattress. Well, let's see. Baby starts to move, SD. Response, rocks mattress. Consequence, baby back to sleep. Yes, so rocking the mattress is our response. C, soothing the baby back to sleep. That's the consequence of rocking the mattress, not the response. Remember, A, B, C. And then D, the baby crying. Did we mention baby crying anywhere in the question? We didn't, which is why you need to be very familiar with the questions and very knowledgeable about what the question is asking. We don't even mention crying, so it shouldn't even be on your radar. The response caused by the SD of baby moving, baby starts to move, is rocking the mattress. And as a consequence, baby goes back to sleep. Whenever you see fireworks, you describe the fireworks as fiery and explosive. You also describe your friend this way whenever she is angry with her boyfriend. You're demonstrating what? Classic response stimulus generalization question. Okay, get good at this. How do we know when it's response generalization? Well, typically there's going to be multiple responses in the presence of a single stimulus. How do we know when it's stimulus generalization? Typically, there'll be one response to multiple stimuli. So in this case, we see fireworks, we say fiery and explosive. You describe your friend when she is angry as fiery and explosive. So we have two stimuli, fireworks and friend. One response, fiery and explosive. What have we done? Well, we've generalized across stimuli. And if you think about it, it makes sense. Generalization, things are occurring in untaught or natural environments, right? In this case, we're generalizing across all these different stimuli, generalizing across fireworks and angry friends. So now the single response is evoked from all these different stimuli. So you're demonstrating B, stimulus generalization. Overgeneralization occurs when the response occurs in the wrong setting, or we generalize to the wrong stimuli. This is appropriate. Okay, so you're demonstrating stimulus generalization. Difficult concept, response generalization and stimulus generalization. Spend a little time on it, all right, but get comfortable identifying the difference. The green team and the yellow team are playing tug of war against one another. The yellow team starts to pull the green team closer to the middle line, so the green team starts yelling, "Pull harder." What aspect of the behavior is the green team focused on? Aspects of behavior, we typically talk about topography, function, magnitude. Topography is strictly how the behavior looks. Function is why it happens, or four functions. Magnitude is the intensity, the size, or the effect, right? When I mean effect, I mean things like loudness, softness, that kind of effect, okay? So when the green team says, well, we need to pull, we're losing, so we need to pull harder, what aspect of the green team focused on? And when you see a word like this, right, one of these kind of adverb words, okay? Harder, softer, faster, smoother, bigger, heavier, quieter, on and on and on and on. What is that describing? Well, it's not necessarily describing topography. Topography is more what is extremely visual, right? The visual component. You can't always necessarily observe, quote unquote, these adverbs, okay? Topography is objectively what we're observing as far as what the behavior looks like. Function is our 4 functions. We're not talking function here. We're talking C, magnitude. Harder is a magnitude, right? Because we're increasing in intensity. We're increasing in magnitude. They said pull softer, that would also be magnitude. So the aspect of behavior that the green team is focused on is C, magnitude. Great. Check out btexamreview.com for all of our study materials. When you pass, let us know. Like, subscribe, work hard, study hard. See you soon.